Hey everybody, it's Steve here, and welcome to another episode of the Blockchain Homestead. So something I was thinking about today was the schemes that I started seeing in the run-up in late December. One of the things you'll see is, Bitcoin's a bubble, which, we've talked about, and it's not. The other thing you'll see a lot of is Bitcoin is a Ponzi scheme. Basically, there are people out there who want to take your money, right? It doesn't matter if it's Federal Reserve notes, it doesn't matter if it's stealing your credit card information or whatever it is. They're out there to steal your money. Maybe I don't know if you have a friend who's a Nigerian prince. I do, and I sent them all this money, and you know how that goes. But it's that same sort of idea, right? So there are scams out there, and as Bitcoin becomes more valuable, you're going to see more and more scams coming out of the woodwork because these people are incredibly bright. They should spend their ingenuity like developing technologies that help people, but instead they try to steal your money. But they're incredibly bright at doing it. So keep your wits about you. So let's talk about Ponzi schemes for a second. Good friend of mine, Palmer. If you're out there, Palmer, hey buddy. So Palmer, one of the things we talked about a while back was the feeling that Bitcoin is kind of like a Ponzi, and you'll hear this in the media, and there's a kernel of truth. Not in the Ponzi, not that it is a Ponzi, but it seems like a Ponzi. Let me describe that. So a Ponzi scheme was named after this guy whose last name was Ponzi. He's a shyster guy, a con artist type. So a pyramid scheme or a Ponzi. You have an original guy. He's up here at the top of the pyramid. He recruits a layer underneath him with the promise of great profits, right? And says, hey, if you guys go out and recruit new people, you can get a share of the investments that they make in the pool, right, in the pyramid. You get a share of their stuff as you bring them in. And then they get a share of the people below them. And they get a share of the people below them, and so on and so on and so on as the pyramid grows. So a way of looking at Bitcoin, and I can't deny this, would say the old investors, like myself, but I came in 2013, so I was buying Bitcoin from people that had invested in earlier years, right? New money is paying off the old people. Yes, in a way. Can't deny that, right? As more people come into a new market that's never existed before, that's going to happen. How is it different? Well, Ponzi's have a central leader. It is a fund. It is a scheme that has a centralized plan, a centralized pool of money, and a guy at the top. So Bernie Madoff, he was the guy that invented the NASDAQ. So he had a lot of clout and a lot of chutzpah, but also a lot of clout in the financial community as being a big player. And so he started recruiting people into his trading firm, into his hedge fund. But what happened was, as they recruited other people, he was using the money that they put in to pay off the people at the top, right, with these huge returns. So that's one of the things that you can spot a Ponzi scheme a mile away. Unrealistic returns. If somebody's promising you 1% a day, like compounded interest, 1% a day, or just market returns that are inordinate to the actual market that they're in, that's a sign that something's wrong. And they're encouraging you to recruit new members to get a cut of what they're putting in. Right, so that's where Bitcoin differs. One, there's no there's no central market, there's no central person, there's no giant centralized pool, but also there's no incentive for me to I'm not getting a cut of somebody else's input into the market. True, the Bitcoin that I own become more valuable the more people that want them, but that's just supply and demand. That's not a Ponzi. That's a separate thing. It's a separate phenomenon. So Ponzi's are built into a fee structure where you're recruiting people and getting a part of their fees. So I think, was it BitPetite or BitConnect? One of them failed recently. That was a Ponzi scheme. Watch Jay Snip's videos on that. He called it a mile away. He could see it. But that's how that works. There's a central figure, usually quite magnanimous. I don't know what the word would be. Charismatic. That brings people in initially and then gets them to start recruiting. It's just like a cult. Stay away from those. And same thing with compounding interest. If somebody's promising you compounding interest, that money has to come from somewhere, right? So always think about that. And then there's the scams, right? So these are, I got an email just a couple weeks ago, right after the big dip in Bitcoin. The email basically said, hey, we have this great business opportunity. Send us 0.2 Bitcoin to this address, and in 6 weeks, we'll send you 0.6 Bitcoin, right? And that's that same scams, just like the Nigerian guy, right? Prince Abubu or whatever. Give me, like, oh, hey, like, I'm this fabulously wealthy prince, but I need your money to handle some legal fees to unlock this vast sum of money that I'll share with you, right? Because you're awesome, and I found you randomly through this email chain. So, but people get fooled by it all the time, and if you're one of those people, I'm sorry. But don't fall for it this time, right? Because Bitcoins are going to be extremely valuable in the future. And this is just another sign, if you want to look at it, as where the value is in this market is as these crooked people start coming in. So, another one is phishing scams. Coinbase and these different exchanges, they will not email you and ask you for your information or your address or your private key. Nobody in crypto is ever going to ask you for your private key. That's an immediate tip-off. Your private key is the end-all and be-all of security. No reputable website will ever ask you for your private key. Don't do it. Don't fall for it, right? So, and never, ever, ever send your private key to somebody. Same applies to your websites that you go to normally. This happened in Ether Delta, and it's called a redirect, a DNS redirect, right? Domain name server. So I actually almost fell for this. I went into Ether Delta, and I noticed that the site just looked a little weird. Something was off. On Ether Delta in the lower right-hand side, they have a Twitter feed, and that was missing. There were people on the web that uploaded their account like normal, and they lost everything because they uploaded their private key, which you have to do for Ether Delta, but it's the way that exchange works, and they lost everything. So when dealing with sites that make sure that you're dealing with them in a way that you're used to. Always check the URL at the top. Make sure that it has the right URL that you're expecting and it didn't redirect you. Make sure the site looks the way it should. If it normally asks you for certain things, make sure that it's asking you for certain things. How people got ripped off with that Ether Delta scheme, they used their actual, like, my Ether wallet or their hard wallet or whatever it was. Never, ever, ever do that with any exchange. I don't care who it is. One layer of protection that I've learned over the years is I create a wallet for like Ether, for Ethereum. I create an Ether wallet that I put funds into, and then I move it on to Ether Delta. So if anything were to ever happen, all they have access to, the private key is for that trading account that I created, that trading wallet. So I don't keep anything on it except what I'm putting into Ether Delta or putting out and then removing back onto another wallet somewhere else. And I recommend this when you deal with exchanges. It is true you'll have to pay service fees a lot, transfer fees and stuff like that. To me, that's worth it for the extra layer of security. Maybe it's not to you, and have at it. I can't tell you what to do with your money. I don't have a license. I'm not a financial advisor. But that's how I minimize my risk when dealing with something that really is the Wild West at this point. So again, not a Ponzi scheme, but avoid the Ponzi schemes that do exist. Don't give your money to people that are promising you outrageous returns for spurious results. Be careful where you are legitimately sending your money to. There are a lot of phishing scams and redirects, emails asking you to give your private key or click on this link to go to this. They're not going to do that, okay? If you see an email from Coinbase, never mind the email, sign into your Coinbase account legitimately and see if you have a notification there, or call them up or email them. Don't just blindly follow emails, okay? As Bitcoin gets more expensive and valuable, more Looney Tunes are going to come out of the woodwork and try to steal it from you. So be aware of that, and just be smart about it, because there is no safety net. And one last thing about that. I fully expect to see 10 to 20-fold returns on Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Ethereum easily this year, right? 10-fold return doing nothing. So one thing I'll ask you to think of when you're looking at all these emails and scams that you're going to see, think about risk to reward. Number one, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. Number two, why? Why are you trying to maximize this amazing return that they're offering when all you need to do is put your money in and get a 10-fold return? That's not again, it's one of those things. How greedy can you be? Leave the bottom 20% or leave the bottom 10% and the top 10% for the really experienced traders, and just try to capture that middle 80% or middle 60%. You don't go broke taking profits. You don't go broke taking that middle 60%. You will go broke trying to be greedy, right? What's that phrase? Bulls make money, bears make money, and pigs get slaughtered. So think about that. If it's too good to be true, if they're asking you for your private key, all these things are scams. Stay away from them, all right? Because you're about to be involved or already are involved in the largest transfer of wealth in human history. And I just want you guys to be smart and be safe. All right. See you guys. Bye.